Okay, so for your revision over the Easter holidays, the main thing you need to be focusing on is actually the exam paper itself, and in particular Section A and Section B. Because it's an early Easter this year, we haven't quite finished Section C yet, so after Easter we'll come back to that part of the paper. But with Section A and Section B, we've covered all the content. You should have done a practice paper for each part of that, of those parts of the paper. So it's a good opportunity to go back through Section A and Section B over the Easter break. So the first thing to do is just reacquaint yourself with the format of the paper. So if you go onto Moodle, click on the general link, click on past papers, and what you'll see here is a range of previous papers. You've got the mark schemes on the left and the papers themselves on the right. Now the paper for AS students is FM2, so ignore FM4, that's the A2 paper. Okay, so if we look at this FM2 paper as an example, okay, so this is what the paper looks like. It's 2.5 hours, 3 sections, Section A, Section B, Section C. Each question carries 40 marks. So looking at Section A, if you remember, with Section A, it's a choice of 2 questions. The focus is on the film industry, producers and audiences. Each question will involve source material. So the source material you have to look through on the day of the exam. You use that material to develop your answer. So it's an essay-based question, 40-mark question, but also link that in with your own case studies. Okay, so part of the paper is responding to the material on the day, but it's also important that you bring in your own examples, and the examples you bring in could be examples we've looked at in class, detailed case studies, or examples that we looked at in class as they emerge, so current films on release, and you can see links on Twitter which will be relevant for that, but just to demonstrate your wider knowledge of what's going on in the film business. Okay, so if we go back to Moodle, just click back here and look at the FM2 link. So this is all the resources for the exam paper are in here. Click on the producers and audiences link. This will give you an idea about what it is you need to know for this part of the paper. Okay, so what do I need to demonstrate for this part of the course? Now the first bullet point on the origins of the American film industry and the establishment of the Hollywood studio system are not essential. So I'd focus most of your revision on the way in which the film operates today, including understanding of the sort of core components of a film's distribution campaign. Now in terms of terminology and concepts, if you click on here, this document, which goes over how the industry operates at each stage of production, distribution and exhibition. Looking at it from the point of view of the major studios, but also the independent studios. What you'll notice on here, you've got key terms in red, and at the end of the document, you've got a glossary defining these key terms. So it's really important that you are familiar with these key terms, test yourself on them, define them in your own words, just to make sure you're comfortable using them. So although you won't need to refer to all of them in the exam, it's important that you're aware of them so you can bring them in where relevant. Okay. Also with Section A, remember the case studies we've looked at. So it would have been a couple of these case studies. So for example, with my students, we're looking at Dark Knight Rises, Under the Skin. So the Dark Knight Rises is an example of a Hollywood blockbuster. Under the Skin is an example of a British independent film. So you should have notes on those. There are other points here that are worth exploring, looking at digital cinema, what is viral marketing, what makes a film British, etc., etc. So just work your way through those links. Also for Section A, you've got links to stuff that's been posted on Twitter using the hashtag FilmFM2A. These are more current case studies, so examples that have emerged throughout the last kind of 6 months or so that might be relevant for this summer's exam. So films like The Revenant, obviously Star Wars, The Force Awakens, Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight, etc. So have a look through those as well. You should have a journal or blog where you've got notes which relates to these case studies and possibly others as well.